If I had known that love could destroy me, I would have kept my heart in chains. But when I met Richard, I thought God had finally smiled on me. It was during our NYSC orientation camp in Ocean State. The sun was blazing that afternoon, and my khaki trousers were clinging to my skin like a second punishment. I had just finished a long drill when I ran into him at the Mammy Market, holding a cold bottle of Pepsi and puffing dust off his white sneakers. Corper Amaka, he said with a crooked smile that melted something in my chest. Do I know you? I asked, adjusting my bucket hat, suspicious. He smiled again and leaned on the wooden pole beside the suya stand. Not yet, but you'll remember me soon. That was how it started. Simple, unassuming, dangerous. Richard was everything a woman could want. On the surface, handsome, intelligent, tall with that Abuja boy aura. He studied economics at the University of Lagos and had big dreams of owning his own finance firm. I was a graduate of medical laboratory science from UNN, passionate about healthcare and destined for something great. At least I thought I was. By the time camp ended, we were inseparable. We redeployed to Lagos together. He got posted to a microfinance bank in Yaba, and I resumed at a private hospital in Ikeja. Every evening, we would meet at the same suya spot in front of the pharmacy near his office. He'd always bring me malt and tell me about his plans. I want to make real money, Amaka, he said one evening, brushing grilled onions off his fingers. The kind of money that will make Mama proud. That woman suffered. I nodded, already dreaming of being Mrs. Richard, driving a black SUV with twin boys in the back seat. Love can be so blinding, so stupid. 2 months later, I got a scholarship for a master's program in Canada. It was the dream I had nursed since my 300 level. Fully funded, prestigious. I was ecstatic until Richard's face changed. He didn't say congratulations. He just sat there, silent, staring at the suya on his paper wrap. Are you planning to leave me? He finally asked. No, of course not, I said, laughing nervously. I thought you'd be happy for me. You think long-distance love works in this Lagos? He snapped. You want to go abroad and forget me like other girls? I was speechless. That night, I cried on my pillow like a child. I didn't want to lose him. So I declined the scholarship offer. I told everyone it was because of family issues. But deep inside, I knew I did it for him. And that was the first sacrifice I made to prove my love. 3 months later, Richard got laid off from the microfinance bank. I used my NYSC allowance and little side hustle money to support him, buying his data, giving him transport fare, even paying part of his rent. I didn't mind, he kept promising. Once I get back on my feet, Amaka, you'll never lack anything. You're my future wife. He introduced me to his mother in Surulere. Mama Richard was a small, sharp-tongued woman with tribal marks and a permanent frown. She sized me up the moment I entered the house. So this is the girl you've been talking about? She asked. Yes, Mama. Amaka. She didn't smile. She just nodded and said, we will see. I cooked a goosey soup with stockfish that day, put my heart into every stir, hoping to impress her. But when I served it, she barely touched it. Too much salt, she muttered. You people from Enugu don't know how to cook. I kept quiet. Later that evening, as I was washing plates in the backyard, I heard her voice from the room. Richard, are you sure about this girl? She looks like someone who will control you. I paused, soap bubbles clinging to my hands, heart pounding. He laughed and said nothing. I should have run that night. But I stayed, because love had already become my prison. I always believed that love meant sacrifice, but sometimes what we call sacrifice is just self-destruction in disguise. After the awkward visit to Mama Richard's house, things slowly returned to normal, or so I thought. Richard got a new job with startup fintech company in Victoria Island. It was a breakthrough after months of applying, and I celebrated it more than he did. I bought him a new wristwatch from my December salary and cooked his favorite, jollof rice with peppered goat meat. We laughed, danced, and toasted with Malta Guinness that night. "This is just the beginning, baby," he said, pulling me close. "When I blow, you'll be the queen beside me." But only weeks after his new job, something began to change. He stopped picking my calls like before. His messages became shorter. "K, okay, cool. No emojis, no baby, no sweetheart." When I asked, he said work was stressful. At first, I believed him, until that Saturday. I was cleaning his apartment when his phone, which he forgot at home, began buzzing nonstop. I hesitated, then curiosity won. 7 missed calls, one name, Cynthia. I froze. Cynthia? Why did that name feel so familiar? I opened WhatsApp and searched for the name. Their last chat read, "Cynthia, you promised to make it up to me last night. You just disappeared. Richard." "Babe, calm down." I had to go home. She was coming over. "She?" My hands trembled. I scrolled higher. "Cynthia. So when are you coming to see my mom? You've met hers?" "Richard. Soon. Just don't pressure me. I told you everything will align." I couldn't breathe. My mind went into chaos. I remembered his distance, the new cologne I never bought, the condoms in his drawer when I knew we weren't even sleeping together regularly anymore. He had another woman, and he had introduced me to his mother while still talking about meeting another woman's mother. I sat on the bed and wept silently, clutching his phone like it could answer me. By the time he came back from the barber shop, I had composed myself. "Someone called you, Cynthia," I said calmly. He blinked. "And you answered?" "No, I saw the missed calls." He snatched the phone, hissed, and said, "You're going through my phone now?" "Richard, who is Cynthia?" He paced. "Just a friend. You're being dramatic again." "Really? A friend you call, babe? A friend who's expecting you to come see her mother?" He paused, then looked at me coldly. "Why are you snooping through my chats?" That moment broke something inside me. He didn't deny it. He didn't apologize. He just made it my fault for discovering the truth. "I gave up my scholarship for you, Richard," I said, my voice shaking. "I've been here through everything. You promised me we were building something." He chuckled. "Don't use your sacrifices to manipulate me. I never forced you to do anything." It felt like a slap. No, worse than a slap. That was the first real sign I should have walked away. But instead of leaving, I did something stupid. I cried all night, then apologized the next morning for snooping, for yelling, for loving him too much. And once again, he forgave me for being broken, while he continued breaking me. They say love is blind, but they never tell you it's also deaf, dumb, and sometimes suicidal. 2 months passed since I caught Richard's chat with Cynthia. I should have left, but instead I drowned myself deeper in the hope that he would change. I started praying more, fasting on Wednesdays, even giving tithe on his behalf. But all I got in return was silence, distance, and eventually pain. Real, physical pain. It started as a mild discomfort in my lower abdomen. I thought it was my usual menstrual cramps. But by the 3rd week, the pain became a steady fire that refused to die down. At first, I ignored it. After all, what was worse than heartbreak? Then, one morning as I got up to prepare for work, I saw blood in my urine. My scream echoed through the tiny apartment in Egbeda. My legs gave way and I crashed into the bathroom door. Ninkechi, my flatmate, came running. Amaka, Jesus, what happened? I don't know, I stuttered. I think I'm dying. I was rushed to Alimosho General Hospital, barely able to stand. The waiting room was packed, but one look at me and the nurses fast-tracked my file. Within minutes, I was lying on a cold metal bed, my legs apart, as the doctor ran a pelvic scan. His face grew tense. Do you know you have multiple fibroids? He asked. I blinked. Fibroids? Yes, and one of them is pressing against your bladder. That's why you're bleeding when you urinate. You also have signs of a ruptured cyst. My mind spun. But, but I don't feel sick. I've always been healthy. The doctor removed his gloves and sighed. It happens gradually. You may not have noticed, but right now this is serious. You'll need surgery and fast. If this continues, you may lose your uterus. I froze. Lose my what? Tears rolled down the sides of my face. My uterus, the place where my unborn children were supposed to grow? The very reason Mama Richard mocked me and called me a barren girl? The very place I was supposed to prove my worth as a woman in a society that measures women by the cry of a baby? No, I couldn't lose it. Not now, not like this. I called Richard from the hospital bed. It rang twice before he answered. Hello? His voice was cold. Richard, please come. I'm in the hospital. They said I have fibroids. They said they might have to operate. Silence. Richard, please. I'm scared. He sighed. Which hospital? Alimosho General. Please. I'm busy right now. I have a meeting. I'll see if I can come later. Click. The line went dead. I stared at my phone in disbelief. My hands went cold. This was the man I loved, the man I stayed for, the man I gave up my dreams for. And I was alone, in a hospital gown, in pain, bleeding, and terrified. Nkechi came later that evening with hot rice and chicken. She sat beside me, fed me, and talked gently. But her eyes kept flicking to her phone. I didn't know it then. But while she fed me in that hospital bed, she was already sleeping with Richard. They say a woman's worth in Nigeria is measured by her ability to conceive, but no one ever prepares you for what it feels like to be judged by a womb you no longer control. It had been 2 weeks since I was discharged from Alamosha General. I was placed on medication to manage the fibroids temporarily, but the doctor made it clear I needed surgery, urgently. I called Richard again, and to my surprise, this time he answered. He came to the house 2 days later, dressed in crisp shirt and perfume that wasn't mine. He smelled like her, I could tell. But I held my peace. Richard, I began softly, the doctor says I need surgery soon. The fibroids are dangerous. I'm scared. He looked at me blankly. How much is the surgery? Close to 400,000. He whistled. That's a lot. Can't your family help? I haven't told them. I was hoping, since we're planning a future together. He rubbed his forehead. Amaka, I have plans too. Work is tight. I'm saving for my own business. You know this. I swallowed. But I'm your woman, Richard. He looked up at me with frustration. Look, I'll try. But you need to talk to my mom. She's been asking questions. The next weekend, I dressed in my finest IRO and blouse and followed Richard to his mother's house again. My heart pounded the entire Kiki ride. My stomach twisted with fear and hope. Mama Richard opened the door, eyes scanning me like I was a criminal. She didn't greet me warmly. We sat in the parlor and she cleared her throat before speaking. So, Richard says you two want to get married. I smiled. Yes, Ma, if God permits. She scoffed. And what do you have to offer my son? Your salary in that small hospital? Or your health problem? Mama, Richard tried to interject. She raised a hand. Let me finish. I don't want a woman who will bury my son's lineage. In this family, children are not negotiable. I felt the tears rising, but blinked fast. Mama, I can still have children after the surgery? Who told you that? She snapped. You want to use my son to do trial marriage? You've already started bleeding, and you think I'll hand my only son to you? Mama, it's fibroids. Many women have them. Then go and cure yourself first, she hissed. If you truly love my son, prove it. Get pregnant before this wedding. That's the only way I'll give my blessing. My ears rang. Get pregnant? She nodded with finality. Yes, if you can carry his child, then we know you're not a waste. I turned to Richard, hoping, begging, for him to speak up, to defend me, to fight for me. But he just looked down and mumbled, Mama's just being protective. Don't take it personally. Don't take it personally? I sat there in silence, the words sinking like stones into my heart. That night back at home, I couldn't eat. I stared at the ceiling, remembering how I gave up my scholarship for this man, how I wiped his tears when he lost his job, how I borrowed money to help him register his new business name. And now his mother was asking me to prove my love by risking my womb? It was madness. It was unfair. It was Nigerian reality. But love makes us do foolish things. And before dawn, I made up my mind. I would do the surgery, and I would get pregnant, even if it killed me. I signed the surgical consent form with trembling hands. As the ink dried, a nurse came to clip a blue tag on my wrist and asked me to remove all jewelry. The smell of antiseptic hung heavy in the air. The fluorescent lights above me buzzed like angry spirits. I tried to breathe, but each breath only brought back the memory of Mama Richard's words. Prove it. Get pregnant first. That's the only way I'll give my blessing. I wasn't just going in for surgery. I was going in to secure a future, to become worthy, to keep Richard. He wasn't there when they wheeled me into the theater. He said he had a presentation at work. Nkechi came instead, holding my hand and praying softly. I wanted to believe it was from love, but I didn't know the same hand praying for me was wiping sweat off Richard's chest just nights before. The anesthetic was cold. The mask over my nose, suffocating. The last thing I heard was the surgeon's voice. We'll try to preserve the uterus if we can. Darkness. Silence. Then pain. I woke up with a scream locked in my throat, my stomach burning like it had been sliced open. And it had. My vision was blurry, and as the anesthesia faded, so did my peace. A nurse rushed in. You're awake, Miss Amaka. Don't move too much. What happened? I croaked. She hesitated. Dr. Fred will explain everything. Please rest. I waited for hours, long, painful hours, before the doctor finally came. He sat beside me, his face unreadable. Miss Amaka, he said gently, we did everything we could, but the fibroids were worse than we anticipated. There were over 11, clustered deep into your uterine wall. I stared at him, barely breathing. There was a rupture during the removal process. You were bleeding heavily, and your blood pressure dropped. We had no choice. I blinked. No choice? He looked down. We had to remove your womb. My heart stopped. My ears rang. My soul shattered. No, I whispered. I'm truly sorry. We tried all we could. I stared at the ceiling, unable to cry. My tears were locked somewhere deeper than my eyes could reach. It was gone. My womb, my children, my future, gone. The doctor squeezed my hand and stood up. leaving me alone with the sound of machines and the whisper of my dreams crumbling. Richard came that evening. He walked into the room with his phone still glued to his hand. Hey, he said, you look tired. I lost my womb, I whispered. He paused. What do you mean? They removed it. The doctor said it ruptured. He didn't say a word. He just stood there, staring at me like I was a stranger in a hospital bed. I waited for a hug, a tear, a whisper of comfort. But all I got was a nod. So what now? He asked coldly. You can't have children again? I looked at him, numb. They said no. He ran his hand over his head and let out a deep sigh. This is heavy. Mama won't be happy. That was all he said. Mama won't be happy. Not, we'll adopt. Not, I'm here for you. Just, Mama won't be happy. He left early that night. He didn't return for 3 more days. Nkechi helped me pack when I was discharged. Her fake sympathy oozed with every touch. You'll be fine, babes, she said. You're strong. But I was no longer sure I wanted to be strong. I had paid the highest price a woman could pay to prove her love. And all I had left was an empty womb and a man already halfway out the door. The scar was small, just below my navel. But every time I looked at it in the mirror, it screamed louder than my lips ever could. A reminder of the price I paid to prove I was woman enough for a man who was never man enough for me. When I returned home after the surgery, the apartment felt colder, quieter, like even the walls were mourning my loss. Nkechi helped me settle in, but I started noticing little things. Her perfume lingered too long on Richard's pillow. Her towel was always drying in the bathroom, even when she claimed she hadn't bathed. And when I woke up at 2 a.m. from a pain-filled sleep, I once heard the faint creak of the mattress in Richard's room. Her laugh, his voice, then silence. But I said nothing. Not yet. Richard began to drift, physically and emotionally. He stopped spending nights at home. When he did return, he barely looked me in the eye. No kisses, no, how are you feeling? Just blank stares and forced nods. One evening, I finally asked, Richard, what's going on? He shrugged. Nothing. I'm just overwhelmed. With me? I asked. With everything, he replied. I nodded slowly, tears burning behind my eyes. I didn't want to cry again. I was tired of crying. Crying didn't change the fact that I was now a woman without a womb, and the man I gave everything to was treating me like expired bread. 3 days later, Mama Richard called. I was lying on the couch, holding my stomach and watching an old Nollywood movie, when Richard handed me the phone. She wants to talk to you, he said. I hesitated, then took it. Hello, Mama. There was silence, then a scoff. So it's true? She asked, voice sharp. They removed your womb? I swallowed. Yes, Ma, but I'm alive and I can... Don't speak nonsense, she barked. Alive for what? To do what for my son? To be a burden? Mama, please. You are no longer woman enough for my child. Do you understand? He needs children. He needs legacy, not pity. Tears rolled down my cheeks. But I love him. She laughed bitterly. Love. Love does not build family. Love does not carry pregnancy. If you really loved him, you would leave. Click. The line went dead. I sat frozen for minutes, the phone still pressed to my ear. I looked at Richard, who was scrolling through Instagram, like the call didn't concern him. She said I should leave you, I whispered. He didn't even look up. I need space, Amaka, he said instead. I've been thinking, maybe we rush things. I blinked. Rushed? We've been together for almost 4 years. He finally met my eyes. Yeah, and now things have changed. What things, Richard? You know what I mean. I stood up shaking. Say it. Say it to my face. He stood too, sighing. You can't give me children, Amaka. Let's stop pretending. My knees buckled. After all I've done for you, after giving up my dreams, my body, my womb, for you. He looked away. I fell back onto the couch, gasping for air, feeling like the room was closing in. Nkechi came in just then, holding her phone and pretending not to hear anything, but I saw the way her eyes avoided mine, the way she looked at Richard, the way he looked back. I knew. In that moment, I knew. He had already replaced me. With her. My so-called best friend. That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The pain in my abdomen was nothing compared to the pain in my heart. I had lost everything. My womb, my man, my dignity. And soon I knew. I'd lose my mind if I stayed any longer. The knock on my door came at 7:42 a.m. I hadn't slept much the night before. My body ached, but my soul was in pieces. I dragged myself to the door, expecting it to be Nkechi with one of her fake sweet apologies, or maybe a neighbor asking if I was okay after hearing me cry all night. But it was Richard, dressed in a crisp white shirt, looking freshly shaved. His cologne, my favorite one, hit me like a memory I didn't want. He had a box in his hand. My heart skipped. For a moment, I was stupid enough to hope. Maybe he had come to beg. Maybe he remembered how much we had gone through together. Maybe. Can I come in? He asked, voice low. I nodded, stepping aside. He sat on the edge of the couch, the same spot I'd curled up in with pain just hours ago. I didn't come to fight, he began. I stayed silent. I came to tell you, I'm proposing to Nkechi tonight. For a full 10 seconds, I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. I didn't move. What? I finally choked out. He opened the small velvet box. Inside was a ring. A beautiful, glistening, heartless ring. I laughed. The kind of laugh that makes your chest hurt. You're proposing to my best friend? He nodded. It just happened. You've changed, Amaka. You're not the same person. I changed because I lost my womb, Richard. Because I risked my life trying to keep you happy. He looked uncomfortable, but he didn't stop. I need a future, Amaka. I need children. A family. Nkechi. She can give me that. She was supposed to be my sister, I whispered. She knew everything. She knew how much I loved you. He shrugged, eyes on the floor. I can't marry someone who can't give me what I need. I felt the world tilt beneath me. So this is it? I asked, voice breaking. You came to show me the ring? To rub it in my face? No, he said, standing. I came because I didn't want you to hear it from someone else. I wanted you to know first, out of respect. Respect. The audacity almost made me laugh again. He turned to leave. Richard, I called softly. He paused. You may get everything you're looking for in her. A womb, a child, a wife who still has all her organs intact. But you'll never, never find someone who loved you the way I did. He didn't respond. He walked out and closed the door behind him. And with that one sound, click, the last piece of my broken heart shattered. That night I stayed in the dark. No phone, no TV, no lights. I imagined her smiling as he slid that ring onto her finger. I imagined his mother clapping in joy. I imagined myself, once the center of his world, replaced, erased, discarded like an old receipt. Then I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I crawled to the floor, lifted my eyes, and cried out, God, if you're still there, I need you now. I found myself staring at a blank page. It had been 3 days since Richard came to show me the ring. 3 days since my entire world cracked into silence. My phone had buzzed countless times, but I hadn't answered anyone. Not even Mama, who called endlessly from the village. I couldn't bear to say the words out loud. But this letter wasn't for Richard. It was for me. For the version of Amaka I had buried under desperation, shame, and sacrifice. I took a deep breath, picked up the pen, and started to write. Dear Amaka, you were never supposed to lose yourself to love. You were supposed to bloom inside it, not bleed to death. You gave your all to a man who saw you as a means to an end. You offered your womb, your pride, your future, and even your dignity. But not once did you ask yourself, what do I deserve? You've cried enough. Now it's time to rise. This heartbreak will not be your burial. It will be your beginning. Get up, dress up, live again. You are not broken. You are reborn. Love, the you that's coming back stronger. I folded the letter, placed it in the back of my Bible, and wept, not from pain, but from release. Later that morning, I finally stepped out of the house. The sunlight stung my skin, but it felt like permission. The world hadn't stopped because Richard did. Life was still moving. I had to catch up. As I walked toward the main road, my phone vibrated again. This time I checked it. It was a text from Mama. Amaka, Biko, come home. Your father is very sick. We need you. My heart jumped. Papa? I hadn't seen him in almost a year. He was never the most affectionate man, but he had always provided. Now he was sick, and they needed me. Without hesitation, I packed a small bag, took the little money I had left, and boarded a bus to Enugu. The journey was long and dusty, but familiar. As the bus sped past the tall palm trees and muddy footpaths of my childhood, something inside me softened. I wasn't sure what I was going to find at home. I didn't know if Papa would even want to see me. After all, I had become that girl, the one who lost her womb before marriage. But as the gates of our compound came into view, I knew this visit would be different. Something was calling me back. Not just my father's illness, but the past, and maybe my healing. That night, after Papa had been taken to the hospital and Mama sat by his bedside praying, I sat alone in my childhood bedroom and opened my old journal. Tucked inside was a photograph of me and Nkechi in university. We were laughing, carefree and innocent. I stared at her smile, then flipped the photo over. In her handwriting it read, "Best friends forever, unless love gets in the way." I frowned. Had she known all along? Was this always her plan? Or was I just blind to the signs? As I put the photo down, one thing became clear to me. Forgiveness was not for Richard or for Nkechi. It was for the girl I used to be, the one who needed closure to move forward. The hospital smelled of antiseptics and hopelessness. I had spent 2 nights in the tiny chair beside Papa's bed. His health was declining faster than we expected. The strong man who once barked orders across our compound now needed help sipping water from a plastic cup. Mama was always praying, rosary beads clenched tight, her whispering voice barely audible over the machines. But I sat mostly in silence, watching Papa drift between sleep and pain, waiting for something, anything. Then on the third day, he opened his eyes fully and motioned for me. Amaka, he said, his voice thin as paper. Come close. I did. He reached out and placed his trembling hand over mine. His fingers were calloused, just like I remembered from childhood, when he would carry firewood or hold my wrist when I misbehaved. I may not have been the softest man, he began, eyes glassy, but I saw you. Even when I didn't say anything, I saw everything. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Papa? No, let me talk, he coughed. When you came back from university and didn't speak for days, I knew something had broken you. I asked your mother, but she just said Amaka is resting. But I saw it. I saw it in your eyes. I turned my face away, shame pouring down my neck like cold rain. I heard the rumors, he said quietly, that you aborted a child, that you can't give birth again. My stomach dropped. He paused, then chuckled bitterly. Small-town people talk too much, but I didn't ask because I didn't know how to love you through that kind of pain. His voice cracked. I failed you, Amaka. My eyes widened. This was not my father. This was a stranger wearing his skin. You were always the brave one, my brilliant girl. You read your books when others chased boys. But when life wounded you, I should have carried the weight with you, and I didn't. Papa, stop. My voice trembled. No, hear me. Before I go, let me say it. He gripped my hand tightly now. I am proud of you, Amaka, not because of who you were, but because of who you survived to become. Don't let what you lost blind you from what you still are. Tears spilled freely down my cheeks. I forgive you for leaving, he whispered. But more importantly, I need you to forgive yourself. I sobbed into his chest, and for the first time in years, he wrapped his arms around me. Fragile, frail, but full of a father's long overdue affection. We stayed like that until the nurses came in. By morning, he was gone. They say people often speak truth at the edge of life. My father gave me back my name before he took his last breath. He didn't leave me land. He didn't leave me gold. But he left me freedom. Back at the compound, Mama wailed as the villagers came to pay their respects. Uncles murmured about inheritance. Aunties speculated about burial cloths. But I sat in silence on the veranda, holding a small envelope Papa had left for me. Inside was an old check from years ago and a letter. For the day you decide to start again. I believe you will. Your future is still yours, Amaka. I clutched the note to my chest. And in that moment, I knew. Papa didn't just leave. He passed the torch. The letter came on a rainy Tuesday. I had just returned from the market, soaked to the bone and bargaining for every naira, when I saw the brown envelope tucked under Mama's old Bible. At first, I thought it was another hospital bill or church program invitation. But when I opened it, my hands trembled. It was from Chinwe, my old schoolmate, now a human resource manager in a fast-rising media company in Abuja. Amaka, I've followed your writing quietly since university. You always had a gift. A position just opened up in our content and editorial team. It's not much, but it's a start. Let me know if you're interested. I'd love to help. It felt surreal. Me? After everything I lost? After being mocked as the girl without a womb? I sat on the edge of the bed, fingers wrapped tightly around the letter, tears streaming not of pain this time, but possibility. For the first time in a long time, I whispered, God, are you giving me a second chance? Abuja. The city was louder, busier, but in its madness I found rhythm. Chinwe welcomed me like a sister. She didn't ask questions. She only said, welcome home. The office was small but vibrant, filled with young creatives who wore their passion like perfume. I started slowly editing articles, writing scripts, proofreading online newsletters. But within weeks, Chinwe pushed me to start my own column anonymously. I called it Silent Scars. Every week, I wrote about the things no one dared to say aloud: losing a womb to a forced abortion, betrayal from a best friend, the loneliness of watching others cradle babies while your arms stay empty. I wrote with fire, with raw truth, with blood still dripping from my soul. And somehow, people listened. Within 2 months, the blog went viral. Women wrote to me from Kenya, South Africa, Ghana, even Canada. "You've said what I couldn't. Thank you for giving voice to my shame. I lost my womb too, and I thought my life ended. But reading your story, I want to live again." I wept reading each message. For the first time, my pain wasn't useless. It was helping others find air again. Chinwe also introduced me to a therapist, Dr. Zara, a soft-spoken woman with dreadlocks and honey eyes. She didn't force me to talk. She simply waited. And one day I did. I told her about Richard, about the abortion, about the surgery that robbed me of motherhood, about Nkechi. She listened and then said, "Amaka, you've been carrying corpses inside you. It's time to bury them." So I did. Each session, I laid a piece of the past to rest. Healing. Healing wasn't dramatic. It didn't come with thunder or revival songs. It came in small ways. Sipping tea without crying, wearing a dress that fit, laughing a full laugh at a colleague's joke, writing without bleeding, sleeping without nightmares. I even started volunteering at a shelter for abused women. Their stories mirrored mine, but now I wasn't just surviving. I was standing. One evening, as I locked up my office, Chinwe approached me. "You know, people are asking to meet the voice behind Silent Scars," she said. "They want you to speak at a women's conference." I froze. "But they don't know it's me." "They will," she smiled. "Soon." I looked up at the night sky. No womb, no husband, no child. But I had purpose. I had a voice. And finally, I had peace. It was a warm Saturday afternoon in Abuja. I had just returned from the women's conference at Jabi Lake, where I delivered a speech titled, "Wombs Don't Define Women." The applause still echoed in my mind. A stranger had even whispered as she hugged me, "You healed something in me today." As I stepped into my compound, I noticed the black SUV parked just outside the gate. At first, I thought nothing of it. Abuja is full of visitors. But then the gatekeeper rushed toward me, whispering awkwardly, "Auntie, two people they wait for you. Dem say dem come from Lagos. One woman and one man." My chest tightened. No, it couldn't be. I walked in slowly, and there they were, Richard and Mama Richard. I stood still, frozen in place. Time seemed to halt. Mama Richard had aged her once proud frame, now hunched, eyes sunken, wrapper tied with uncertainty. Richard sat beside her, beard overgrown, eyes hollow. The confident boy I once knew now looked like a shell. They both stood up immediately when they saw me. "Amaka," Richard said softly. I said nothing. Mama Richard fell to her knees. Right there, on the concrete. "Amaka Biko, my daughter. I was blind. I judged you wrongly. I didn't know. I didn't know Nkechi was capable of such evil." I blinked. Nkechi. The name still tasted like rust in my mouth. Richard stepped forward. "She's not okay, Amaka. She's in a psychiatric home. She talks to herself. Sometimes she screams your name in the night." I swallowed hard. Not out of sympathy, but because I remembered the night I screamed too while they took my womb away. He continued, I was foolish. I thought, I thought I was being wise. But everything you wrote, I read it. Every word. I didn't know how deep I cut you. Omar Richard touched my feet, weeping. I told Richard we must come and beg you. You lost your womb because of him. Because of us. Please find space in your heart. Even if you can't forgive. Her voice broke. Richard dropped to one knee beside her. Amaka, I want to start again. I know I don't deserve it, but please. I stared at them, long and hard. Then I spoke, calm, quiet, cold. I lost my womb proving love to you. That was your last chance. Silence. Mama Richard sobbed louder. Richard looked like the ground might swallow him. I walked past them, into the house, closed the door gently. And for the first time in years, I didn't cry. That night I updated my blog. Healing is not welcoming your abuser back with open arms. Healing is knowing you deserve more and walking away without hate or regret. And I meant every word. Where in the world are you listening to my story from?